Welcome to Fostering Solutions, a podcast that uplifts people and enterprises making positive impact in communities around the world. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Foster. My guest today is Mavery Davis. Hi, Mavery. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. How you doing, Dr. Foster?
Just fantastic on this West Virginia morning. It's great to have you on. I've seen you working hard and working diligently in our community. So I just wanted to sit down and, get to know more about you and just share your work with the audience. And, so let's start off by telling me about yourself. Who is Mavery Davis?
Well, Dr. Foster, this is actually a pretty hard question for me. If I'm completely honest with the audience, that's something I'm still trying to figure out. Like most of us, I'm a work in progress. That said, I'm a husband, a father. I'm someone who cares about the community. I'm energized by building people up, by encouraging positivity, especially reaching younger generations to light their fire, so to speak. I've always been something of like a hype man for as long as I can remember. I can remember, when I played football in high school, I wasn't always the best player, although I did get playing time. I wouldn't consider that I was the best player, but one thing that I always had that I think coaches saw in me is that I always appeared to be, it always was in my soul, happy to see others do well. And that's probably what led to getting me on the field because, I wasn't always the best. I don't think I'm the best now, but it's just something about seeing others do well that sort of gives me energy.
Okay, and that kind of there's a scripture that says, stir up the people. I think it was Paul and Timothy about stirring up the gifts. So everybody needs to have someone to stir up their gifts, right? So that sounds like what you were saying to me. So talk about your career trajectory. You're a CPA. You've had a number of different roles. So talk about your career trajectory and what hurdles you had to overcome, so far in your life.
Okay, well, I mean that's a that's a pretty involved question. So I'll say this so I don't forget any points. So I'll say like I never saw myself being an accountant. Like that. I don't even think accounting or accountant was in my vocabulary until I was a junior in college. And then, some of the other trouble, and I'm going to go into this a little bit more, but some of the other trouble that I've had, I had a child before graduating college. I've always felt a sense of like not being accepted in the field that I'm in, as an accountant. Family obligations have always posed a huge problem. But so to rewind a little bit, like I said, I never saw myself as an accountant. I came out to West Virginia on a football scholarship back in 2005, so I always thought I was going to be a football player.
Where did you come from? Where did you come from?
Oh, I came, that's a good thing. I came from Los Angeles, California, born and raised in South Central Los Angeles, the part they show on the news all the time. But yeah, so, pretty tough upbringing and dealing with all of the massive gang violence and stuff in the inner city of Los Angeles. You know, that was the main reason that I sort of, you know, after high school, I went to junior college, still kind of chasing the dream of becoming a professional football player. Somebody, you know, I didn't get selected to a Division I, so somebody said, well, go to junior college and try it again. So I did, right? So that was where I was introduced to the University of Charleston. They came to one of our practices out in California. I liked the brochure. And so, you know, I decided to go as far away from California as possible. And that led me to Charleston, West Virginia. The only thing I knew about West Virginia at the time was Randy Moss. You know, I didn't know, I didn't even, you know, I didn't really know where I was going or what I was doing. I just knew that I was getting far away from Los Angeles. Just because of all the, you know, how hard it was to sort of live there, and all the trouble you could easily get into. So I came out to West Virginia on the football scholarship, and, you know, things weren't exactly easy. You know, I got here, I played a semester at UC, and it was there. And I promise you, this is part of the story of becoming an accountant, right? So I get there, and, you know, I play a whole season, and then we go, you know, the whole team kind of goes to register for classes for the next semester, and all of us owe UC like thousands of dollars, like upwards of $20,000, you know. So the coaches at the time, nobody associated, and again, I want to be clear that it's nobody is there currently at UC that was there at the time that this happened. So like they took care of it. But at the time, you know, there's about 50 of us from junior colleges out in the California area, who were basically out here in West Virginia just kind of stuck. We were told that we had full scholarships, and that wasn't true.
Wow.
So, you know, so obviously I started looking for somewhere else to go, and, you know, to finish school or whatever. That was my primary thing, you know, especially since football wasn't exactly working out. And so I found West Virginia State University, HBCU. I checked it out. It thought it had a great program. And so I enrolled in West Virginia State. It was also more cost effective. You know, at the time I'm 20 something years old. I'm thousands of miles away from home. You know, and I didn't, you know, people back at home didn't really have the resources to support me or to do anything. And they thought I was good because I came out here on a football scholarship. They're like, you know, and so I didn't, you know, I didn't know really have anybody to turn to, and even if I did, you know, there was a sense of like, you know, I made this decision, like I've got to figure it out for myself, right? Like, so, you know, maybe, you know, now what I know now, I might have asked for help sooner, but I didn't, right? So I tried to figure it out myself, and I did. I landed at State, and, you know, it was at State that I switched my major to marketing, because now I'm starting to think like, well, what am I going to do after this is over? Like,
what was your major when you were at UC that first semester?
Oh, at UC, I was a history major.
Okay. I don't know what you're going to do.
I actually have an associate degree.
Right. Yeah.
I have an associate degree in history from College of the Canyons. So,
gotcha.
You know, I was studying, you know, the U.S. Civil War, and I studied what was that, like all of the political atmosphere in like Japan, and how their system was. I don't remember a lot of that stuff now, but at the time it was interesting.
Okay.
No, I just know it was very intricate. They start them out very early, and there's like all of these pathways that they did to like learn the government there and stuff. So I thought that was cool. But so I'm a history major, and so now I'm thinking like, what am I gonna do after college? I can remember being, one of my biggest inspirations in life is one of my football coaches, Coach Deion Lambert, he was my history teacher in high school. So like I was just like, I'm gonna be like Coach Lamb, and I'm gonna be a history teacher. So I was a history major. But then, I started thinking like, I don't know if I want to teach. I don't know what I'm going to do with that degree. So, I enrolled I switched my major to marketing because I was like, I felt that was more natural to me. I was like, I get to deal with people, maybe make some commercials or something. I didn't know what marketing was either. So I was just like, let me try that. So I wrote, I switched my major to marketing, and as I'm progressing through that, obviously in business administration you have to take an accounting class. So now I'm in an accounting class. I didn't know what was going on. I didn't understand it. It was confusing to me. I had never heard of it before. So I worked hard. I would study. I would often read chapters 2 or 3 or 4 times just because it was so confusing. And that's just how it was, and I passed the classes. Apparently I passed them with really good grades, A's or B's. And I still wasn't into accounting. Like I was like, it didn't spark any interest in me. And then there was this administrator, Patricia Schaefer, may she rest in peace. This Patricia Schaefer was the head of the accounting department at the time. She kept following me around with these newspapers and magazines, telling me like what CPAs are, and that it's a good profession and you have a good job coming out of college and all of this stuff. And that stuff I was receptive to. I still kind of wasn't listening. I was just like, excuse me, lady, I don't even understand this stuff. Like, I don't know what it means. She's like, but you're getting good grades, and people don't get good grades in accounting. I said, I hear you, but I don't know what this is, right? So I kept going, and then eventually, like while I was still in college, not too long after that conversation, I had a child. Well, I had a child. He wasn't exactly born yet, but he was. Amari was my girlfriend at the time was pregnant. And then those conversations that Schaefer was having with me started to resonate a little bit more, because now I got a kid that I'm trying to think about taking care of after college, and or even while I'm in college, because I worked all while I was in school. Like I've always had jobs. Like I've worked everywhere. I worked everywhere in Charleston. but so it was then those conversations about so then I switched my major to accounting, because I was like, okay, I want to have a good job, I want to be able to support this kid, and then I got really interested in accounting once I started learning about the time value of money and finance and like saving, investing, things like that. And so I added a major. I added a finance major. So now by this time I'm like a junior, senior in college. I'm taking all of my accounting courses in the summer. Like I graduated on time, but it's because I just kept going to summer school. I took extra classes because I wanted to graduate on time. And we were talking to the kids about this yesterday. I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do, so it was very late in my college career that I landed on a major in something that I graduated in. I finished my accounting degree and I started working. I graduated in 2007. I got a job because West Virginia State is really good about like connecting their accounting students with employers and people. You know, they do like a whole career fair thing, and you know, so I participated in that, and you know, I was able to secure a job like in accounting, making pretty good money like before I even graduated. So you know, so I did that, and and again, here's where some more trouble comes. So, you know, I moved to Galax, Virginia, which is a couple of hours away from here. Small town, is like one stoplight in Galax. Uh, and, and so I'm working for this firm, Elliott Davis. I don't think they're in business anymore, but about 6 months after, like, that's when all of the heat started coming. So around this time, about 6 months after that, now dealing with, I'm no longer with my son's mom, and she's moved back to California. And so now I'm in court trying to like keep visitation of my son who's currently in West Virginia, but then his mom is about to move to California. So I'm dealing with that. And also this company just laid me off out of nowhere. They just laid me off after 6 months of employment. In fact, one of the partners sat me down and told me I was nothing special. You're not really doing much here, and just like broke my whole little spirit. And I'm just like, yeah. So anyway, so like that happened, and so, but again, you know, I took it as like, you know, I was disappointed by that, but at the same time, I really needed to get back to Charleston because that's where my custody proceedings were, and I wanted to really be a part of that. So, you know, but again, because accounting is a really strong degree, it wasn't long before I was working again. You know, so I was so right after that, I was working at Settle and Stoniker, who hired me maybe a couple of months after I had moved back to Charleston, and I worked there for 4 years. You know, I worked at Settle and Stoniker for 4 years. Great company, and but I also had trouble there. You know, they called me trouble. But you know, one of the issues I had there was, for one, you know, at every conference I went to, every training I went to, I never felt like I was accepted, right? Like I always felt like I was the other, or you know, there was really nobody that looked like me in any of the spaces that I was in. And also, too, I mean, we're talking about career trajectory and changing. So, you know, and again, I'm early in my career, and I'm also a new father and all of this stuff, and trying to deal with that with my son 2,000 plus miles away in California. So I was, while I made good money, it was still difficult to travel back and forth to California to exercise visitation. By this time, you know, I'm married by now. We had another small child, so you know, I having to deal with my home life here. So I went to Settle and Stoniker had a policy. They had a policy for if you had to get a second employment or a second job, you had to clear it through the partners, right? Which is cool. You know, I followed the rules. I went to the partners and said, hey, I found this part-time job. You know, it's a night auditor at a hotel. You know, I really need this additional income because I got this kid and they knew him too. I would bring him to the office whenever I had him in the summer and all of this stuff. And I was like, I just want to see him more, right? So I need more, but you guys are paying me fine. It's just, you know, it's not enough. So they told me, I hear that that's commendable, but you can make more money here if you, I could have renegotiated my contract. I could put in more hours that I expected to bill. And then 6 months or so down the line, they would evaluate it and see if they could raise my salary. And I said, well, I hear that, but I don't got 6 months. I want to see my kid like next month, right? Like, and so this is the solution for me, is to take this second employment. So they told me no. And so, you know, that also broke my spirits a little bit. I'm sitting there trying to figure out how to do this stuff the right way. And, you know, they told me no. And so I'm like, man, so what do I do? So for a few months after that, I was a little upset about that. But, you know, like my typical nature, I just started trying to think of other ways, like trying to figure it out. So I'm playing softball one day, and one of my coworkers has a friend who works at the airport, at Yeager Airport. And he starts talking about all these free flights that he gets for working at the airport and what he does and all of this stuff. And the whole time I'm thinking, well, I can't go to the partners with this. They're going to tell me no, just like it. So I did it under the table. You know, I went to this mutual friend and had him help me set up an interview at the airport. So I did that. And I was working there for 2 years. I was doing both jobs. I was accounting that day, CPA. Oh, well, not CPA yet. I hadn't even got that far. I was, I was working at this accounting firm for the last 2 years of my employment. I was at the accounting firm for 4 years, but the last 2 years I worked both jobs. You know, I worked as a baggage handler at Yeager. And so sometimes I would see the partners come through the airport, but, you know, I was a baggage handler, so I was normally under the plane or outside on the tarmac. So I would keep my hat on and some glasses on and just like and sometimes I would be at the gate and I would see them and I would just keep my head down and, you know, like hoping that this is passed, knowing I'm doing something wrong, right? But also feeling that pull, be like what's best for me and what's best for my family, and you know, like how do I manage that? And so I did it for 2 years, and it wasn't until I had some trouble. I think another coworker or something had an issue with me because had some sort of random issue with me, and somehow it came up that Mavery's also working at the airport. And you know, I had no bad performance reviews up until that point, none. I had just had a good performance review. In fact, one of my managers at the time came to me and said, I don't know what's going on, but they are really dinging your performance review. And like, I don't support that, you know? And so and so now I'm kind of in conflict with this really good employer and what I got to do for my personal life. And it just kind of came down to what I just said. You know, I told the partners at the time, I said, look, you do what's best for you and your company, and I'll do what's best for me and my family. You know, the people that work with me seem to not have an issue with my performance, but yet I'm getting this bad performance because we did peer reviews, right? So the people who you worked with would provide the core feedback for the work that you were doing. And the overall evaluation that I got, in my opinion, didn't match with what people who work directly with me were saying. So I'm like, there's something else going on here. Maybe y'all just don't want, y'all mad that maybe they were upset, and maybe rightfully so, that, you know, I went against policy and took another job. But, you know, that was one of the challenges that I had. And so eventually, you know, we just severed that relationship mutually. It was, you know, no big deal. I went my way, they went their way. And that's what took me to working at I spent some time at the West Virginia legislature working in the post audit division. And so at this time,
yeah, we've got a lot to talk about. So you went from the legislature to what came next after that?
Well, I went from Sutherland Stoniker to the legislature.
Mm-hmm. And then to private practice.
And then from the legislature, I went to the auditor's office, and I worked on the big Oasis project to implement the state's accounting system.
Okay.
So this is and so around this time, this is where I'm really trying to determine, like, what am I even doing as an accountant? Like, I didn't feel like it was the right space for me. I didn't feel like I was advancing. I didn't feel like I was being appreciated, all kinds of things. And so in post audit, at the legislature, it was the same thing. Very quickly, I started. Though I was the only, again, African. Well, no, there was another African American CPA there that actually, one of my inspirations, William Spencer. William Spencer really went to bat for me at the legislature. He was a manager of mine, but I had difficulty there too. For whatever reason, people just didn't like the way I worked, or I don't know what it was about me, but they started. People started doing some really shady stuff, like telling the managers I wasn't working because they didn't see my screen moving, but they never stopped to ask me, like, what I was doing or how the tests were set up and all of this stuff. So I would find myself in the director's office defending nothing really, able to, like, defend myself and, just basically do something I felt like, why is this even necessary? Like, I do my work, you can see the results, But anyway, like, so that started rubbing me the wrong way. And I was like, after the 4 years at the other place, I was like, I'm not about to be dealing with this anymore. So I started looking for something else. And that's what led me to the auditor's office. So actually at the auditor's office, I took a job that I didn't even need a high school diploma to do it. But I kept coming back applying for that position. And Glenn Gaynor, the auditor at the time, he stopped me and he says, Mavery, like, you're too overqualified for this position. What are you doing? I'm like, I need to find a home. I need to go somewhere where I'm accepted, where I can grow. And right now, like, I'm just trying to get out of that space. And the auditor's office has a lot of opportunities here. So he says, Mavery, look, we got this project coming up in a couple of years. We're going to need somebody with your skill set, but it's not coming up for a while, right? He say, will you take this position and just be ready whenever, like, this? And he didn't even tell me the name of the project. It happened to be the Oasis project. And so at that time I said, yeah. I was like, do you guys help with? And now I'm thinking about, like, getting my CPA license, not for anybody else, just for myself. And so I took that job. It was a low lift. It wasn't a heavy lift for me. And I kind of used that time there. It was about 2 years. I used that time to study and pass the CPA exam. And I also went back to school and got my master's degree during that same 2-year period, because the job was a lot slower. I could think a little bit more, and management there, Glenn Gaynor, they saw something in me that maybe I didn't even see, right? And they were just like, we just want you around for when we really, really need you. Until then, just do the best you can. And they helped me with my education, which, I appreciate. So I ended up getting my CPA license. I ended up getting my master's degree, and now I'm working on this Oasis project, which was really cool. And so we helped to implement the tax piece of the tax side of that. So the state went from hundreds of agencies reporting individually to different taxing authorities, whether they're state or federal government. And so through Oasis, we condensed that into one reporting mechanism. So now the state reports under one EIN number. So I worked on that project, but that was what led me to I got a call one day sitting at my desk at Oasis, on the Oasis project from the West Virginia Department of Veterans Assistance. And they say, hey, we're looking for somebody to be our director of finance, and we know you're a CPA, and we really want you to work for us. I'm like, I said, I never applied for this position. I didn't even know it was posted. Well, they found me at a political rally. I was literally at a political rally. So I'm at a Bernie Sanders rally, and I'm like, I volunteered because this is also around the time I really started to I want to get more politically active and all that stuff. So during Bernie Sanders' campaign, I volunteered to direct the crowd into a stadium in Huntington. And so I'm out there, and there's a guy heckling the crowd about taxes and different things. And I'm sitting there in front of him, keeping the line going, but also listening to this guy about whatever he's saying about taxes. So I just start ripping into him and going back and forth with them, but also keeping the line moving, keeping people going into the event. Because what these hecklers normally do is they stop and they crowd up the line, and then the event that's going on, people don't get to it, right? So I was just let me just occupy this guy and keep the line going. But standing behind me was the cabinet secretary of the Department of Veterans Assistance. And I didn't know I was applying for a job. That's what I'm saying. You never know who's watching you. You never know.
Yep. So now you are the director of lending for New Economy Works. Talk some about that.
So New Economy Works, West Virginia. We are a lending agency specifically devoted to financing cooperative businesses. So we identify, support, and finance them. And so we're a part of a more extensive regional and national network that helps supply resources and guidance to our organization. And as a local ambassador of Seed Commons, we work according to 5 principles, right, which are building cooperative democratic ownership within communities, productive sustainability, maximizing community benefit, radical inclusion, and the one that I value the most is non-extraction. So, that's what we do there. We're focused on minority communities and providing them access to business capital and technical assistance.
So because kind of back up and define, what is a cooperative business for those who may not know?
Oh, yes. This is a question we always get. So before I go into what is a cooperative, I just want to make it clear that a cooperative can be any business in any industry, right? But cooperatives operate under 7 core principles, which are 1, voluntary and open membership, 2, democratic member control, 3 is member economic participation, 4 is autonomy and independence, 5 is education, training, and information, 6 is cooperation among cooperatives, and 7 is concern for community. No matter how your business is legally formed, it can still function as a cooperative as long as it follows those 7 principles.
Okay, so how has business been in West Virginia with with lending and those efforts?
Well, the lending that we do in West Virginia is very slow because of the way that we work with the projects that we work with. We work with a very high touch process, right? So, and it's not like a check the box type of thing. So we really focus on building up the people and the business along the way. So currently we have only one active project right now, but and that's Fat Daddy's on the Tracks. If you haven't had it, it's some great food over there. But I mean, I just read an article of yours, right, that talked about how minority businesses traditionally, lack access to capital or lack access to financing or banking. Yeah, there's lots of barriers, right? So, and in your article, you cited how businesses under 500 in revenues, they are especially like locked out of that process, right? They're not going to get financed. Well, through the way that we lend and through our network, we were able to secure Fat Daddy's 6 figures in startup financing. This is right out the gate. They don't even have a track record of sales yet, right? But that's how we're able to basically that's how we're able to address that that what you see in normal financing pathways, right? We're able to address that because we work very closely with the business owners, help them develop a business plan, help them come up with financial projections, and really identify what amount does this business need to just get started, right? Because that's the phase that they're in. Now, we do work with projects that are at various different stages. You could be a startup, you could be a conversion. You don't have to, we work with folks wherever they are, right? And we help them grow into cooperatives. But with Fat Daddy, that really highlighted, because at the time we began working with them, they were going to banks trying to finance this idea. They were applying to the city for those $10,000 business grants. They were denied 3 times, and the day that they were denied, we were able to secure them 6 figures in financing, and then another important thing is we don't just leave the organization or stop supporting them once they're financed, right? We continue working with them through the whole process of figuring out their marketing, figuring out their internal operations, giving them access to other grants and things that will reduce the liability over time, right? And our financing, I said earlier, non-extractive. So what non-extractive means is we only take payback from new revenues and profits generated as a result of the financing we give. So we're not coming after any assets that already exist in the business, anybody's personal assets. any collateral, if any, would be collateralized by items or equipment and stuff that we bought with the money, with whatever financing we provided, right? So with
where do
that,
you get your
with
money? Where does New Economy Works, the national organization, where do you get your funding?
Seed Commons. So, but that's just the thing, right? So Seed Commons primarily Seed Commons is it provides business capital, right? So we have 40 plus million in business capital that's strictly for business capital nationwide, and here in Charleston we have access to that as well, but Seed Commons also raises additional funding that it provides to the locally rooted loan funds, such as New West Virginia. And there's 27 different locally rooted loan funds throughout the country, but here in Charleston, so they provide an allocation to fund my work and working in Charleston. And we don't charge anything to the people that we work with, right? So my task is finding other local sources of financing to support like my work and other project officers that will go out into Charleston and find and help and build and finance Cooperative. So that's something I'm working on right now. But Seed Commons understands that, this work is important. So as the funds are available, Seed Commons kind of works with us on a year-to-year basis to see where we're at. And if we need financing to continue funding my work, then they provide that. We're not going anywhere if that's what you're asking, but we are actively looking for ways to support this work here locally, so that more of the resources for Seed Commons can go into the business capital, which is the main problem, right? Is getting these minority and marginalized people in marginalized community access to big bank financing that we know that they're locked out of. We look at all the statistics. We know that people like Fat Daddies are locked out of that type of financing.
Okay, good. You also have an interest in financial education of youth. So is that your community service? What inspired you to start working with youth on financial education?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. So my inspiration for that, to be completely honest, was and still is the state of my own personal finances, right? So as I look back over my wants and needs for myself and for my family, I realized that what I was doing at work as an accountant, creating budgets, setting goals, tracking against what we said we would spend and what we actually spent, setting money aside. I wasn't doing that stuff at home in my personal life. So it was after years of being exposed to this stuff during college, graduate school, professional certification that it hit me. Like, I was never taught how to do this stuff and the implications of not doing it at a young age. I just wasn't. And it was at that point that I decided I knew enough to start teaching our youth in middle and high school about personal finances. And so, I started the Financial Literacy Bootcamp, really just to try and give back. I felt like I had all of this knowledge that I was finally starting to do something with for myself, and I was starting to see results for myself. And I thought, like, the main reason that it's taken me so long is because nobody got to me earlier. And I thought, like, let me do what I can do today and teach somebody that's coming up something that I know will help them because I know of how it's helping me like right now.
All right, awesome. So let's kind of jump to leadership some. What are you're clearly a community leader. Um, what are some of the skills, attitudes, and behaviors you had to learn or adopt to be the leader you are today?
Ooh, that's man, you asked some tough questions. But you know, those I would say I'm still learning those things. But you know, I would say some of the skills that I have to learn are just being a good listener. You know, I naturally I like kind of talk a lot. And so while that has got me into a lot of spaces, I've also over the years and over my time trying to do the work that I do, realize that, you know, it's important to get my messages out, but if I'm going to be a leader, it's even more important for me to listen to others and to take what others are saying and tie that to what I'm trying to teach, and to make, you know, to connect what I know to actual needs that people have instead of just trying to give people things. So, you know, good listening, man, time management skills.
Mm,
That's another one.
yeah.
I'm still working on that. You know, one of my natural, you know, I'm naturally inclined to just try to help people or to try to jump in on things if somebody requests. And, you know, and it's with good intention, but over my time doing the work that I do, that's also got me in a lot of trouble, right? And it has highlighted some of the things that I never really paid attention to or didn't or wish I would have learned earlier, and that's time management and setting proper boundaries, right?
Okay.
So, you know, that those are, I would think, the two main things that I would say the skills that I've learned, and I think are important if anybody wants to be a leader.
Okay. Okay. So let's kind of wrap, thinking about as you reflect on your career, what do you know now that you wish you knew when you first started?
Hmm. What do I know now that I wish I knew when I first started? Well, I know now that uh, entrepreneurship and um, sort of building things is going to is going to be difficult, and it's going to push you to places that you probably never thought you would be. So so what I know now that I wish I had have known sooner is just like to be more patient. You know, I think I've gotten myself some opportunities by maybe being pushy, but or you know just being kind of gung ho about things. But had I uh, had more of an element of patience, which I feel like I have more patience these days. Probably because some of the letdown that I've had by pushing for like these big, really big dreams and then them not happening, and it's sending me into like sort of a tailspin or something like that. Um, you know, had I just been more patient, you know, maybe things would have went differently, or maybe I would have made better decisions. So these days I'm trying to really practice my patience and make sure I really understand my purpose and what I'm doing and the purpose and the intentions of what others are doing. and just not rushing things, and just being really reflective and patient about the information that I'm bringing in and that I'm putting out into the community.
That's good. That's good. So, as you look to the future, you're in a sector where the racial wealth gap, I'm sure you are very aware, and you see it in your work every day. So, given that, and everything that we're going through, as that veil of systemic racism is being lifted, in spite of all that, what gives you hope? What makes you get up every day and continue to do the work that you're doing, with getting financing to minority businesses, with working with students and educating them financially? What gives you hope in spite of everything?
What gives me hope is the people that I get to connect with every day. You know, just yesterday we spoke with 200 plus high school students over the whole day. Every period. We had a different group, and we had not only were the students engaged about the information that they were getting, people's life stories and their explanations of struggles and perseverance and overcoming that stuff. The students paid really close attention to that, and they were really receptive to it, and it seemed to help them. But also just seeing all of the people, all of the community leaders that came out to spend time with these kids, to not take it as something that was for granted. I really got the sense that people felt like it was really important to share their stories and share their struggles, to help the next person, and that gave me a lot of hope, and I was also inspired by some of the people that, like, I didn't even know they had gone through so much, and like they're still here, and so just really helped me to put things in perspective. I think, and I think Charleston has this community that is so supportive of so many things, and we have a chance here in Charleston to really take things in a different direction, because we're so close. We're so close in proximity to each other, and we're able to give that support to our neighbors, and like really help the next person thrive. So, people in general just kind of give me hope. Just every day I'm out there, I see it every day. Somebody does something good for somebody else, and that gives me hope that, like, the work that I'm doing is gonna help the next young person figure out personal finances sooner than I did. Is gonna help the next Black-owned business overcome the challenges that I had with starting my own businesses, and that we're gonna be able to provide a level of financing that is available today that wasn't available yesterday. So, like, I see it every day, and it just inspires me to, like, get up and keep figuring this stuff out because it's,
Awesome.
I don't know the answer. I just try to figure it out every day.
Yes, yes, yes. That's the beauty of Charleston, being in a small place like Charleston. I think people care, and people, you can help, you can make an impact. It's harder, like in like in an LA or Brooklyn or something like that. But here in small Charleston, I think we can make a great impact. Thanks
Yeah.
so much, Avery. Thanks so much, Mavery. I appreciate your time, and I'll see you out there somewhere in Charleston.
Yes, we will definitely see each other. I appreciate the time. you know, like I said, I'm humbled. I'm honored to be talking to you, and I'm going to keep watching the work that you do, and do my best to participate. And so, only thing I say to people is, you know, keep on paying attention to all of the good work out there, because if you need something, definitely here in Charleston, somebody can help you. So,
Absolutely. All righty. Take care.
all right. Talk to you later, Dr. Faulkner.